The salvage ship Mercy's hand drifted through the debris field of what had once been the greatest space battle in galactic history. Captain Sarah Chen pressed her face against the viewport, her blonde hair catching the dim light from distant stars. The battlefield stretched for millions of kilometers in every direction, filled with the broken remains of warships from a dozen different species. "Another dead zone," muttered her co-pilot Marcus as he checked their scanners. Nothing but scrap metal and radiation. Sarah wasn't so sure. Something had been calling to her for the past 3 days. Ever since they'd entered this sector, it wasn't a sound exactly, more like a feeling deep in her chest, a pull toward something important. The war had ended 50 years ago, but the galaxy still bore its scars. The Great Alliance had won against the Devourers, those machine-like beings that consumed entire worlds. But the victory had come at a terrible cost. Entire species had been wiped out, and those that survived were still rebuilding. "Wait," Sarah said, pointing toward a massive chunk of twisted metal. "Take us closer to that wreck," Marcus groaned. "Sarah, we've been out here for weeks. Our cargo hold is already full of salvage. Command wants us back at base." "Just a quick look," she insisted. Something doesn't feel right about that one. As they approached the wreck, Sarah realized it wasn't a ship at all. It was enormous, easily the size of a battle cruiser, but organic in shape. The surface looked like it had once been covered in scales, though most were now damaged or missing. Strange bioluminescent patterns flickered weakly along its sides. "By the void," Marcus whispered. "Is that a Leviathan?" Sarah's breath caught. She'd heard stories about the Leviathans, ancient creatures that some species had used as living warships. They were supposed to be myths, legends told around campfires, but here was proof that they had been real. "It's hurt," she said softly, noticing the massive wounds along the creature's flanks. Some looked fresh, while others appeared to have been healing for decades. "Hurt? Sarah, that thing's been dead for 50 years. But as their ship drew closer, Sarah saw something that made her heart race. One of the creature's massive eyes opened, staring directly at them. It was ancient and intelligent, filled with pain and loneliness that seemed to echo across space itself. "It's alive," she breathed. Marcus checked his instruments frantically. "Impossible. There are no life signs, no heat signatures. That thing is stone-cold dead." Sarah ignored him, her attention focused entirely on the creature. As she watched, more of its eyes opened, revealing that its head alone was the size of their entire ship. The patterns along its body pulsed more brightly, creating waves of blue and green light that flowed across its massive form. "We need to help it," Sarah said, already moving toward the controls. "Help it? Sarah, that's a war beast. Those things were bred for battle, designed to destroy entire fleets. Even if it is somehow alive, it's probably hostile. Look at it, Marcus. Really look." Sarah's voice was gentle but firm. "Does that look hostile to you?" Marcus stared at the creature and had to admit that it didn't look threatening. If anything, it looked sad, defeated. The way it moved was slow and careful, as if it was trying not to frighten them. "The war's been over for 50 years," Sarah continued. "This poor thing has been floating out here alone all this time, wounded and abandoned. Everyone just left it to die. Because it's dangerous. Because they're afraid." Sarah began plotting a course that would bring them alongside the creature. "But I'm not." As their ship moved closer, the Leviathan's massive head turned to track their movement. Its eyes, each one larger than their entire cockpit, watched them with what Sarah could only describe as hope. "Sarah, please. We don't know anything about these creatures. What if it attacks? Then we'll defend ourselves. But I don't think it will." Sarah opened a communication channel and began broadcasting on all frequencies. "Hello, beautiful. Can you understand me?" For a moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, the patterns of light on the creature's body began to pulse in a rhythm that matched Sarah's heartbeat. "It's trying to communicate," she whispered in wonder. Marcus shook his head. "This is insane. We need to report this to the Alliance immediately. So they can come study it? Dissect it? No." Sarah's voice hardened. "This creature has suffered enough." She guided their ship closer until they were nearly touching the Leviathan's massive head. Up close, she could see the intricate patterns carved into its scales, the way its gills fluttered weakly as it breathed. It was beautiful and terrible and utterly alien, but there was something unmistakably intelligent about it. "What do you want from us?" she asked softly, her hand pressed against the viewport. The creature's response was immediate. The light patterns across its body flared brightly, And suddenly Sarah's mind was filled with images. She saw the Leviathan in its prime, swimming through space like an ocean, its body crackling with energy. She saw it fighting alongside organic ships against the mechanical devourers, its voice joining a chorus of others in songs of war and determination. Then came the pain, the final battle, where it had taken terrible wounds defending a fleeing convoy. The slow drift through space as its companions fell silent one by one. The crushing loneliness of 50 years alone in the dark, and finally, hope. The first hope it had felt in decades, sparked by the arrival of one small salvage ship, and the blonde woman who looked at it without fear. Sarah pulled her hand away from the viewport, tears streaming down her face. Sarah, what happened? Marcus was shaking her shoulder. We're not leaving, she said firmly. Whatever it takes, we're going to help this creature heal. Sarah spent the next 3 hours studying the Leviathan, trying to understand its injuries and what it needed to survive. Marcus had stopped arguing and started helping, though he still jumped every time the creature moved. The wounds are infected, Sarah observed, pointing at several gaping holes in the creature's side. Look at the way the edges have turned that dark purple color, and some of these cuts go deep into its body. The Leviathan had positioned itself so they could examine its injuries more closely. It seemed to understand that Sarah was trying to help, remaining perfectly still even when their ship's scanner beams swept across its damaged flesh. How is it even alive? Marcus wondered aloud. These wounds should have killed it decades ago. Sarah accessed their ship's medical database, searching for any information about Leviathan biology. What she found was mostly legend and speculation, but there were a few scientific reports from before the war. According to this, Leviathans can enter a kind of hibernation state when badly injured. Their bodies slow down almost to nothing, allowing them to survive for incredibly long periods while healing. She looked up at the creature's massive form. It's been trying to heal itself this whole time, but something's preventing it from completing the process. The Leviathan's patterns pulsed again, and more images filled Sarah's mind. This time she saw the projectiles that had wounded it, mechanical devices that burrowed into flesh and released toxins designed to prevent healing. Devourer bioweapons, she whispered. They're still inside it, poisoning it from within. Marcus paled. Those things are incredibly dangerous. Even inactive, they could contaminate our entire ship. Then we need to be careful. Sarah was already pulling up schematics of their medical bay. Our surgical drones aren't big enough for this job, but maybe we can modify them. Sarah, we're salvage operators, not doctors. We don't have the equipment or expertise for something like this. Then we'll learn. She met his eyes with determination. I won't abandon this creature the way everyone else has. As if responding to her words, the Leviathan began to sing. The sound came through their ship's hull, a deep thrumming that seemed to resonate in their bones. It was beautiful and haunting, filled with layers of meaning that Sarah couldn't quite grasp, but somehow understood. It was a song of gratitude, of hope, and of pain so deep it made her chest ache. It's thanking us, she said softly. Marcus was staring at the creature with new eyes. I've never heard anything like that before. Sarah began working on modifications to their equipment while Marcus contacted their supply depot for additional medical supplies. She told them it was for crew injuries, not wanting to reveal what they'd found until she understood the situation better. The work was slow and difficult. The Leviathan's biology was unlike anything in their medical databases. Its blood was a luminescent blue that glowed with its own light, and its scales were harder than most metals. But gradually Sarah began to understand how its body worked. It's not just one creature, she realized after hours of scanning. It's like a living ecosystem. There are smaller organisms living inside it, helping it digest food and process waste. The whole thing is incredibly complex. The Leviathan seemed pleased by her growing understanding. Its songs became more frequent, and sometimes Sarah caught glimpses of its memories, seeing the galaxy as it had been before the war. She saw worlds that no longer existed, destroyed in the fighting. She saw other Leviathans singing together in harmonies that could be heard across star systems. She saw the partnership between the creatures and the organic species that had befriended them, a bond based on mutual respect and shared purpose. They weren't weapons, Sarah said suddenly. They were partners. The organic species didn't control them. They worked together willingly. Marcus looked up from the medical drone he was modifying. What changed? The war. The devourers were winning, and desperation made people do terrible things. Some species started forcing the leviathans to fight, using pain and drugs to control them. The partnership became slavery. The leviathan song turned sad, confirming Sarah's theory. In its memories, she saw its own species being captured and tortured, forced to fight battles they didn't understand for causes they didn't believe in. No wonder they went extinct, Marcus said quietly. Who would want to live like that? Maybe they're not extinct. Sarah looked hopefully at the creature. Maybe they just went into hiding. But the Leviathan's response crushed that hope. Through their growing connection, it showed her the truth. It was alone, the last of its kind. Its family, its friends, its entire species had died during the war, either in battle or from grief and despair. Sarah felt tears running down her cheeks. The loneliness the creature had endured was beyond imagination. To be the sole survivor of an entire species, to carry the memories of your people with no one to share them with. We're going to fix you, she promised, her hand pressed against the viewport. And then you're never going to be alone again. The medical modifications took 2 full days to complete. Sarah barely slept, driven by the knowledge that every hour of delay meant more suffering for the Leviathan. The creature waited patiently, occasionally singing soft lullabies that helped her stay focused during the long work sessions. Finally, they were ready for the first extraction procedure. Are you sure about this? Marcus asked as they maneuvered their ship into position. If we damage something vital, we won't, Sarah said with more confidence than she felt. It trusts us. The modified surgical drone approached one of the smaller wounds, its sensors locked onto the bioweapon buried deep in the Leviathan's flesh. Sarah guided it carefully, aware that one wrong move could cause terrible pain to the creature that had already suffered so much. The Leviathan remained perfectly still, though Sarah could feel its nervousness through their mental connection. When the drone finally grasped the bioweapon and began to extract it, the creature's entire body shuddered with pain. Almost got it, Sarah whispered, her hand steady on the controls despite her racing heart. The bioweapon came free with a wet, tearing sound. It was a horrible thing, covered in barbs and still pulsing with malevolent energy. The moment it was removed, the wound began to heal, glowing with the same bioluminescent patterns that covered the Leviathan's skin. The creature's song of relief and gratitude echoed through space, so beautiful that both humans found themselves crying openly. One down, Sarah said, wiping her eyes. Only dozens more to go. The trouble started on their 4th day with the Leviathan. Sarah had just finished removing another bioweapon when their communication system crackled to life with an incoming transmission. Salvage vessel Mercy's Hand. This is Alliance patrol ship Steadfast. You are ordered to cease your current activities and prepare for inspection. Marcus went pale. They found us. Sarah kept her hand steady on the surgical controls, but her heart was pounding. Through the viewport, she could see the sleek military vessel approaching, its weapon systems clearly visible. Mercy's Hand. Respond immediately or we will consider you hostile. Sarah reluctantly activated their communicator. This is Captain Chen. We're conducting legitimate salvage operations in unclaimed space. Negative, Captain. Our sensors detect unusual energy signatures from your location. You will submit to immediate inspection. The Leviathan had stopped moving, sensing the tension in the air. Its patterns dimmed as if trying to hide itself. But something that massive couldn't simply disappear. Sarah, Marcus whispered urgently. We need to leave now. I won't abandon it, she said firmly. Not when we're making such good progress. The Alliance ship moved closer and Sarah could see its landing bay doors opening. Armed inspection teams would be boarding within minutes. Steadfast, this is Captain Chen. I'm transmitting our salvage permits now. Everything we're doing here is legal. Captain Chen, our long-range sensors detected a massive biosignature in this area. Explain its presence immediately. Sarah's mind raced. She could lie, but the inspectors would see the Leviathan the moment they arrived. She could try to run, but their salvage ship was no match for a military patrol vessel. The Leviathan made the decision for her. Its massive form suddenly blazed with light, patterns flowing across its scales in waves of brilliant color. The display was so beautiful and unexpected that even the Alliance ship held its position, apparently stunned by the sight. By the void, came a whispered voice over the communicator. Is that a Leviathan? Confirmed biosignature is consistent with pre-war Leviathan specimens. another voice reported. This is a major discovery. Alert command immediately. Sarah felt sick. She had wanted to protect the creature, and instead she had led its enemies right to it. The inspection shuttle launched from the Alliance ship and approached rapidly. Sarah could see armed soldiers through its windows, their faces hidden behind combat visors. Sarah, the Leviathan spoke directly into her mind for the first time, its mental voice deep and resonant. Do not fear for me. Fear for them if they mean harm. Before Sarah could respond, the inspection shuttle had docked with their ship. She heard the airlock cycling and the heavy footsteps of armored soldiers moving through their corridors. Stand down and submit to inspection, ordered a voice through their internal comm. System. Sarah and Marcus raised their hands as 4 Alliance soldiers entered the bridge. Their leader, a stern-faced woman with colonel's insignia, looked around with sharp eyes before focusing on Sarah. Captain Chen, I am Colonel Morrison. You are in violation of multiple Alliance regulations concerning the discovery and handling of pre-war artifacts. What regulations? Sarah demanded. That creature is alive and in need of medical attention. We're providing humanitarian aid. That creature is a weapon of mass destruction, Morrison replied coldly. Leviathans are classified as Category 1 threats. Standard protocol requires immediate containment and study. Study? Sarah's voice rose in anger. You mean torture? That's what your scientists did during the war, isn't it? Experimented on living beings trying to turn them into weapons. Morrison's face hardened. The war is over, Captain. The Alliance exists to prevent another catastrophe like the one these creatures helped cause. This creature fought against the Devourers. It was defending refugee convoys when it was wounded. According to our records, Leviathans were responsible for the destruction of 14 human colonies and countless military vessels. Sarah felt the Leviathan's pain spike through their connection. Those attacks hadn't been willing choices but desperate actions taken under the control of cruel masters. Not by choice, she said firmly. They were enslaved, forced to fight against their will. That's speculation, Captain. What matters is the threat they represent. Through the viewport, Sarah could see more Alliance ships arriving. The small patrol vessel had become a full battle group, with heavy cruisers and research vessels moving into position around the Leviathan. Sarah, the Leviathan spoke in her mind again. I do not wish to cause trouble for you. Perhaps it would be better if I departed. No, she thought back fiercely. They'll hunt you down. You're too weak to escape, and you'll die from your injuries without treatment. The Leviathan was quiet for a moment. Then sadly, perhaps that would be better. I am tired of causing pain. You haven't caused any pain. You're the victim here. Colonel Morrison was studying readings from a handheld scanner. The creature's energy output is increasing. It may be preparing to attack. It's not attacking anyone, Sarah said desperately. It's hurt and scared because you're threatening it. But Morrison wasn't listening. She was speaking into her communicator. Control, this is Inspection Team Alpha. Recommend immediate containment protocols. The creature is showing signs of agitation. Sarah watched in horror as the Alliance ships began deploying containment fields, energy barriers designed to cage the Leviathan. The creature's light patterns shifted to colors she'd never seen before, deep reds and angry purples that spoke of fear and rage. Stop, Sarah shouted. You're terrifying it. The Leviathan began to sing, but this wasn't the beautiful melody Sarah had grown to love. This was a song of warning, a deep bass note that made the ships around it vibrate and their instruments malfunction. It's using sonic weapons, Morrison barked into her comm. All ships prepare for defensive action. It's not attacking. Sarah tried to push past the soldiers, but they held her back. It's just scared. But her words were lost as alarms began blaring throughout the Alliance fleet. The Leviathan's song grew louder, and several of the smaller ships actually began to retreat from its overwhelming presence. Tranquilizer deployment authorized, came a voice over the communicators. Subdue the target immediately. Sarah watched in anguish as specialized darts, each one the size of a shuttlecraft, fired from the research vessels toward the Leviathan. But the creature was no longer the passive, wounded being they had been helping. Its massive tail lashed out, crushing 2 of the darts before they could reach their target. Its songs became roars of defiance that shattered viewing ports and overloaded sensor arrays. It was never your enemy, Sarah screamed over the noise. Can't you see that it just wants to be left in peace? But the Alliance forces had made their decision. More ships were arriving every minute, and Sarah could see the heavy assault vessels taking position. They intended to capture the Leviathan by force, no matter how much damage they caused in the process. The creature Sarah had worked so hard to heal was about to become a prisoner once again, and there seemed to be nothing she could do to stop it. In her mind, she felt the Leviathan's deep sadness as it prepared for another war it never wanted to fight. The battle lasted only minutes, but those minutes changed everything. Sarah watched helplessly as the Leviathan defended itself against the Alliance fleet. The creature didn't attack the ships directly, instead using its massive size and sonic abilities to create a defensive perimeter. Its songs became shields of sound that deflected the tranquilizer darts and disrupted the containment fields. But Sarah could feel its pain through their connection. Every defensive action cost the weakened creature enormous energy. The wounds they had been treating began to reopen, and the Leviathan's light patterns flickered with exhaustion. "Stop this," Sarah begged Colonel Morrison. "You're killing it!" "Stand down." Morrison barked into her communicator as more Alliance ships arrived. "That's an order. The creature is not attacking." One of her subordinates looked confused. "Ma'am, our orders were to contain the threat." "Look at it." Morrison pointed through the viewport. "It could have destroyed half our fleet by now if it wanted to. It's defending itself, not attacking." Sarah felt a surge of hope. Maybe someone in the Alliance still had sense. But that hope died when Admiral Reeves's voice crackled over the communications channel. "Colonel Morrison, you are relieved of command. Major Steele will take over the operation." A new voice, cold and mechanical, replaced Morrison's on the command channel. "All units, this is Major Steele. Resume containment protocols. The creature's defensive capabilities make it even more valuable for study." "No." Sarah broke free from the soldiers holding her and lunged for the communications panel. "Admiral Reeves, this is Captain Sarah Chen. I've been in mental contact with this creature. It's intelligent, peaceful, and the last of its species. What you're doing is genocide." "Captain Chen, you are under arrest for interfering with Alliance operations," Major Steele replied. "Guards, secure the prisoner." But before the soldiers could reach her, something extraordinary happened. The Leviathan's voice filled Sarah's mind. But this time it wasn't speaking just to her. All who can hear, the creature's mental voice resonated across every consciousness in the area. "I am Kethvar, last song of the deep swimmers. I do not wish war. I wish only peace in the memory of those who came before." Sarah felt tears streaming down her face as the Leviathan shared its memories with everyone present. She saw through its eyes the beauty of the galaxy before the war, when its people swam between the stars in great pods, their songs carrying news and stories across light years. She felt the creature's joy when the first organic species made contact, the wonder of sharing knowledge and friendship with beings so different from themselves. The Leviathans had been teachers, healers, and guardians, using their great size and power to protect smaller species from natural disasters and cosmic threats. Then came the darkness. The Devourers arrived from beyond the galactic rim, mechanical swarms that consumed everything in their path. The organic species banded together to fight, and the Leviathans joined willingly, their massive forms serving as living battleships in the desperate struggle for survival. But as the war progressed and losses mounted, desperation drove some species to horrific acts. They began capturing young Leviathans, implanting control devices in their brains, torturing them until their songs became screams of rage and pain. "I remember the taste of blood that was not my enemy's," Kethvar shared, his mental voice heavy with old grief. "I remember attacking worlds full of innocence because the pain in my skull left me no choice. I remember the faces of children who ran from me in terror." Sarah could hear sobbing from some of the Alliance soldiers. Through Kethvar's memories, they experienced the creature's anguish at being forced to destroy the very beings it had sworn to protect. The war ended. Kethvar continued, but the pain did not. "One by one, my people chose the final song, preferring death to the memories of what we had been made to do. I alone remained, too cowardly to follow them, carrying their songs in my heart with none to share them." Colonel Morrison, tears running down her face, spoke into her communicator. "Command, request immediate cessation of hostile actions. The creature is not a threat." "Negative," Major Steele replied coldly. "Emotional manipulation is a known Leviathan ability. Continue containment operations. But Sarah could see that the memories had affected more than just the soldiers on her ship. Several Alliance vessels had stopped their attack, their crews apparently overwhelmed by Kethvar's shared experiences. "There's something else," Sarah said, pressing her hands against the viewport to strengthen her connection with Kethvar. "Show them about the song." The Leviathan hesitated, then shared its deepest secret. Buried within its massive brain was something that had taken its species millions of years to create. The Grand Archive, a living record of every species, every world, every story that had ever existed in their corner of the galaxy. "When the last stars burn out and the galaxy grows cold," Kethvar explained, "someone must remember what was. That was our purpose, our sacred duty, and now only I remain to carry it forward." Sarah felt the weight of that responsibility crushing down on her. This wasn't just about one wounded creature. Kethvar was a living library, the sole keeper of countless extinct civilizations' memories and knowledge. "Admiral," she said desperately, "you can't destroy something like this. The knowledge it carries could benefit everyone. Medical techniques from species that evolve different solutions to disease. Technologies from civilizations that face different challenges. Stories and art and music from cultures that were wiped out in the war." There was a long pause before Admiral Reeves responded. "The creature will be taken into Alliance custody for study and debriefing. That knowledge will be extracted and preserved properly." "Extracted?" Sarah's voice rose in horror. "You mean you'll dissect its brain?" "If necessary." Kethvar's mental voice was sad but resigned. "It is as I expected, young Sarah. Your species sees only the value of what can be taken, not what can be shared freely." "No," Sarah said fiercely. "Not all of us. I won't let them do this to you." She turned to face Colonel Morrison and the soldiers on her bridge. "You felt what I felt. You saw the truth of what this creature is. Are you really going to stand by and let them vivisect the last keeper of 1,000,000 extinct civilizations?" Morrison looked uncertain. "My orders are clear, Captain. Your orders are wrong." Sarah looked each soldier in the eye. This is exactly the kind of thinking that led to the atrocities during the war. Following orders without questioning their morality. Marcus, who had been silent through the entire confrontation, finally spoke up. "She's right. I've seen what Sarah's been doing these past few days. The care she's shown this creature. It's not a weapon or a research subject. It's a person. A person with the memories of billions of dead people inside its head." One of the soldiers said quietly, "My grandmother's world was destroyed in the war. If this creature remembers her people..." Kethvar's response was immediate and gentle. "I remember the bright gardens of Kepler 442c, and the crystal singers who made music from starlight. Your grandmother's people created beauty that still echoes in the void." The soldier started crying. Sarah made her decision. "Colonel Morrison, I'm asking you to choose between following orders and doing what's right. Help me get Kethvar away from here, somewhere it can heal and share its knowledge freely instead of having it stolen." Morrison stared at her for a long moment, then at the massive creature visible through the viewport. Kethvar was still glowing weakly, its strength nearly exhausted from the battle and the effort of sharing its memories. "I'll be court-martialed," Morrison said finally. "Maybe," Sarah agreed. "Or maybe you'll be remembered as the person who saved the greatest library in galactic history." Morrison looked at her soldiers. One by one they nodded. "All right, Captain Chen," Morrison said with a slight smile. "What's your plan?" Sarah's plan was desperate and dangerous, but it was their only chance. "Kethvar can generate hyperspace distortions," she explained quickly to Colonel Morrison and the soldiers who had chosen to help. "If we can get it far enough away from the Alliance fleet, it might be able to jump to safety." "Might?" Morrison asked. "It's badly wounded and exhausted. A hyperspace jump takes enormous energy, and I don't know if it has enough strength left." Through the viewport, they could see more Alliance ships arriving every minute. Admiral Reeves was clearly taking no chances with what he saw as a priceless war relic. "Major Steele is hailing us," Marcus reported from the communications station. "Stall him," Sarah ordered, then pressed her hands against the viewport to communicate with Kethvar. "Can you jump us all to safety?" The Leviathan's mental voice was weak but determined. "I can try, Small Singer, but the effort may kill me. Then we need another option." Sarah's mind raced through everything she'd learned about Leviathan biology over the past few days. "The bioweapons are still draining your strength. If we could remove more of them quickly..." "There isn't time," Morrison said. "Look." She pointed at the tactical display which showed Alliance assault ships moving into attack formation. Their weapons were charging and containment nets were being deployed. "They're not planning to capture you anymore," Sarah told Kethvar. "They're going to kill you and take your brain for study." The Leviathan's pattern shifted to the angry reds and purples Sarah had seen during the earlier battle. "Then perhaps it is time for one last song of war." "No," Sarah said urgently. "That's exactly what they want you to do. The moment you attack, they'll have justification to destroy you completely." Mercy's hand. "This is Major Steele. You will prepare for immediate prisoner transfer or be fired upon." Morrison grabbed the communicator. "Major Steele, this is Colonel Morrison. I'm resuming command of this operation." "Negative, Colonel. You are under arrest for insubordination. Surrender immediately." "I don't think so." Morrison nodded to her soldiers who quickly moved to secure the bridge. "Sarah, whatever you're going to do it now." Sarah closed her eyes and reached out with her mind, searching for the connection she'd built with Kethvar. But instead of speaking to the Leviathan, she did something that surprised everyone, including herself. She began to sing. It wasn't like Kethvar's deep, resonant songs. Sarah's voice was high and clear, very human, but she poured all her love and determination into it. She sang about the beauty she'd seen in the creature's memories, about the civilizations that deserved to be remembered, about the hope that peace might still be possible. Kethvar's response was immediate and overwhelming. The Leviathan's own song joined hers, but this time it wasn't defensive or threatening. It was pure harmony, two very different voices creating something beautiful together. The effect on the Alliance fleet was electric. Ship after ship stopped their attack approach as Kethvar's song carried Sarah's message directly into the minds of their crews. They felt her compassion, her determination to do what was right regardless of the cost. All ships resume attack positions immediately. Major Steele's voice was furious. "Do not be affected by the creature's mental manipulation." But several ships continued to hold their positions. Their crews, touched by the shared song, were refusing orders. "We have a problem," Marcus called out, monitoring the sensor readings. 3 heavy cruisers are still approaching, and they're not slowing down." Sarah could feel Kethvar gathering its strength for one final effort. The creature was preparing to fight even though it meant certain death. "Wait," she said, both aloud and through their mental link. "I have an idea." She turned to Morrison. "Colonel, how many people in the Alliance fleet do you think have family members who died in the war?" "Nearly everyone," Morrison replied grimly. "And how many would want to meet those family members again, even just in memory?" Morrison's eyes widened as she understood. "You want Kethvar to share the memories of the dead, not just share them? Kethvar, can you create a permanent mental link with willing volunteers? Let them carry copies of specific memories so they're not lost if something happens to you?" The Leviathan was quiet for a moment, considering. "It is possible, but dangerous. Human minds are not designed to hold such memories. The volunteers could be driven mad by experiences not their own. But some might survive it," Sarah pressed. "And those who do would become carriers of the archive, preserving it even if you're destroyed." "It is unprecedented," Kethvar admitted. "My people never shared the deep memories with other species. Because your people never faced extinction before." Through their connection, Sarah felt Kethvar's sudden hope. It was a desperate gamble, but it offered something the creature hadn't dared dream of, a way to ensure the memories would survive even without it. "The approaching ships are charging weapons," Marcus reported tensely. "Do it," Sarah urged. "Broadcast an offer to the entire fleet. Anyone who wants to carry the memories of lost loved ones, lost worlds, lost civilizations, make the offer and let them choose." Kethvar's song changed again, becoming something Sarah had never heard before. It was an invitation, an offer of the most precious gift the creature could give, the memories of those who had died. The response was immediate and overwhelming. "Sir, we're receiving thousands of requests from across the fleet," came a confused voice over the communications. "Crew members requesting permission to receive memories from the creature." Major Steele's voice was harsh with anger. "All requests denied. Any crew member who makes mental contact with the hostile will be court-martialed." But Sarah could see through the sensors that many ships had already moved closer to Kethvar, their crew members making the choice to risk everything for a chance to reconnect with lost family and friends. "This is Admiral Reeves," came a new voice over the communications. "Major Steele, you are relieved of command. All ships will hold position until further notice. Sarah felt a surge of hope, but it was quickly crushed by the Admiral's next words. Prepare the memory extraction equipment. If this creature can share memories voluntarily, we can extract all of them without needing to dissect the brain. No, Sarah breathed. He still doesn't understand. Kethvar's mental voice was sad but not surprised. Your leaders see only the value of taking, never of giving freely. This is why my people chose the final song. Then we make our own choice, Sarah said firmly. She turned to Morrison and her soldiers. Are you with me? Morrison looked at the tactical display, at the overwhelming odds they faced, at the certain court-martial and imprisonment that awaited them if they continued. Then she looked at Kethvar, glowing weakly but still singing its song of hope. Captain Chen, she said with a smile, I've never been more honored to disobey orders in my life. Sarah nodded and turned back to Kethvar. Can you jump? Take all of us somewhere safe? I can try, the Leviathan replied. But we must go now before they bring the extraction equipment close enough to use. Sarah felt the space around them beginning to distort as Kethvar gathered energy for the hyperspace jump. The creature's massive form began to glow brighter, its patterns shifting to colors that hurt to look at directly. All ships, came Admiral Reeves's urgent voice. Fire on the creature immediately. Do not let it escape. The Alliance fleet opened fire, energy beams and missiles streaking toward Kethvar's massive form. But the creature was already phasing out of normal space, reality bending around it as it prepared for the jump. Sarah felt the familiar sensation of hyperspace translation beginning, but something was wrong. Kethvar's song was becoming strained, pained, and she could feel the creature's strength failing. It's not working, she realized with horror. The wounds are too severe. The jump is taking too much energy. Through their connection, she felt Kethvar's determination. The creature was willing to die trying to escape. But Sarah knew it wouldn't be enough unless she did something desperate. Kethvar, she said, placing both hands firmly against the viewport. Take my life force. Use my energy to complete the jump. Sarah, no, Marcus shouted, but it was already happening. Sarah felt her life energy flowing into the Leviathan, her human vitality merging with the creature's alien biology. It burned like fire and ice at the same time. But she held on, pouring everything she had into helping Kethvar escape. The last thing she saw before everything went white was the look of wonder in the creature's massive eyes as it realized what she was doing. Then reality twisted and they were gone. Sarah woke up to the sound of singing. She was lying on the floor of her ship's bridge, covered by someone's jacket, with Marcus kneeling beside her checking her pulse. Through the viewport she could see they were no longer in the debris field but floating in empty space with stars she didn't recognize. How long was I unconscious? She asked weakly. 6 hours, Marcus replied, relief obvious in his voice. We thought we'd lost you. Sarah struggled to sit up, her body feeling strange and different. She could still sense Kethvar nearby, but the connection between them had changed. It was deeper now, more permanent, as if part of the Leviathan's essence had merged with her own. Where are we? She asked. Colonel Morrison helped her to her feet. About 50 light-years from where we started in an uncharted system. Kethvar brought us here after the jump. Through the viewport, Sarah could see the Leviathan floating peacefully nearby. Its wounds were healing rapidly now, the bioluminescent patterns along its flanks glowing with healthy blue and green light. The bioweapons, Sarah realized. When I shared my life energy with it, did that help it fight off the poison? More than that, Marcus said, showing her his scanner readings. Your human immune system somehow merged with its biology. The bioweapons are being neutralized by your white blood cells, modified by Kethvar's healing abilities. Sarah felt a surge of joy through her connection with the Leviathan. For the first time in 50 years, Kethvar was truly healing. There's more, Morrison said, her voice filled with wonder. While you were unconscious, volunteers from the Alliance fleet made contact. Kethvar has been sharing memories with anyone who wants them. The fleet followed us, some of them. About 30 ships broke off from the main force and jumped here independently. Their crews were willing to be court-martialed for the chance to connect with the memories of their lost loved ones. Sarah looked through the viewport and saw the small fleet of Alliance vessels keeping a respectful distance from Kethvar. As she watched, shuttle after shuttle approached the massive creature, carrying volunteers ready to receive the precious memories. How many people have connected with the archive? Sarah asked. Over 3,000 so far, Morrison replied. And each one becomes a carrier, able to share specific memories with others. Kethvar has found a way to distribute the archive safely among willing volunteers. Sarah felt tears of joy running down her face. The ancient knowledge wouldn't be lost. Even if something happened to Kethvar, the memories would survive in the minds and hearts of thousands of people. There is something else, small singer. Kethvar's voice spoke gently in her mind. The merging of our life forces has created an unexpected possibility. Sarah pressed her hand against the viewport, strengthening their connection. What do you mean? Instead of words, Kethvar showed her. Deep within the creature's massive body, Sarah's life force had done more than just provide energy for the jump. It had awakened something that had been dormant for millennia. Reproduction, she whispered in amazement. My people require genetic diversity from other species to create new life, Kethvar explained. It has been so long since we had willing partners that I had forgotten it was possible. But your gift has reawakened that ability. Sarah felt the implications hit her like a physical blow. You mean, you don't have to be the last of your kind? With time and willing partners from various species, yes. My people could return to the galaxy. Partners? Marcus asked, having overheard through their ship's communication system. Kethvar's mental voice was warm with amusement. Not in the way your species reproduces, friend Marcus. Leviathans require life energy from many different beings to create new offspring. It is a willing gift, freely given, that causes no harm to the donors. Over the next few hours, word spread through the volunteer fleet. Scientists, doctors, and biologists eagerly offered their expertise to help understand the process. What they discovered was remarkable. Kethvar could indeed reproduce, but the offspring would be different from the original Leviathans. They would carry genetic memory from all the donor species, creating a new kind of creature that was part Leviathan and part everything else. They would be bridges, Sarah realized, watching the data scroll across her screens. Living connections between all the species of the galaxy. It is what my people always were in our own way, Kethvar agreed. But these new children would be something more. They would carry the memories of the past and the hopes of the future. But even as hope flourished, Sarah knew their troubles weren't over. Admiral Reeves and the main Alliance fleet were undoubtedly searching for them, and they had limited supplies. We can't stay here forever, Morrison said, voicing Sarah's concerns. Eventually they'll find us. Then we need to go somewhere they won't look, Sarah replied. Kethvar, do you know of any safe places? Worlds where we could establish a sanctuary? The Leviathan's response came with images of distant stars and hidden worlds. Places that existed in the memories of extinct species but weren't recorded in any current star charts. The lost colonies, Sarah breathed, recognizing some of the locations from the shared memories. Worlds that were abandoned during the war but might still be habitable. I know the way to 7 such worlds, Kethvar confirmed. Places where new life could grow safely, away from those who would exploit it. Sarah looked around the bridge at the people who had risked everything to help save one wounded creature. Marcus, loyal and brave despite his fears. Morrison and her soldiers who had chosen conscience over orders. The thousands of volunteers in the fleet who had come seeking memories of lost loved ones and found hope for the future instead. What do you say? Sarah asked them all. Ready to help establish the first Leviathan sanctuary in 50 years? The answer came not just from the people around her, but from every ship in the volunteer fleet. A chorus of voices all saying yes, all ready to be part of something unprecedented in galactic history. Then let's make history, Sarah said with a grin. But as Kethvar began preparing for another hyperspace jump, Sarah's enhanced senses detected something troubling. Far at the edge of the system, new ships were appearing. Ships with familiar energy signatures. Admiral Reeves had found them. How much time do we have? Morrison asked, seeing the same readings. Not enough, Sarah replied, watching the Alliance battle group form up for an attack. They're not going to let us leave peacefully. Kethvar's patterns shifted to the aggressive colors Sarah had learned to recognize. Then we fight one more time, small singer. But this time we fight together. Sarah felt the creature's determination flowing through their connection, but also its wisdom. This wasn't about winning a battle. It was about ensuring that hope survived, no matter what happened to them. All ships, she broadcast to the volunteer fleet. Prepare for emergency jump to coordinates Kethvar is transmitting now. We're going to scatter to 7 different systems and establish sanctuaries on each world. What about you? Marcus asked. Sarah looked at Kethvar through the viewport, feeling the deep bond that connected them. Someone needs to make sure the Alliance doesn't follow you. Kethvar and I will draw them off. Sarah, that's suicide, Morrison protested. Maybe, Sarah agreed, but it's also the best chance for the sanctuaries to succeed. As the volunteer ships began their jumps to safety, Sarah felt a deep sense of peace. Whatever happened next, they had succeeded in the most important goal. Kethvar would no longer be alone, and the memories of 1 billion extinct civilizations would live on in the minds of those who chose to carry them. Sometimes that was enough. 1 year later, Sarah stood on the observation deck of the first Leviathan sanctuary, watching young creatures play in the crystalline waters of New Harmony. They were beautiful beyond description, these new children of Kethvar. Each one was unique, carrying the genetic memories of dozens of different species. Some had the graceful fins of the old Leviathans, while others bore scales that shifted color like human emotions, or had the harmonic voice chambers of extinct singing species. The youngest ones are showing remarkable development. Dr. Elizabeth Hayes reported, joining Sarah at the railing. The former Alliance scientist had been among the volunteers who chose to carry memories from Kethvar's archive. Now she served as the sanctuary's chief biologist. How many are there now? Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer through her connection with Kethvar. 17 live births with 12 more developing. Each one represents a new hope for interspecies understanding. Sarah smiled, remembering how different things had been just a year ago. After drawing the Alliance fleet away from the escaping volunteers, she and Kethvar had expected a final battle. Instead, something unexpected had happened. Admiral Reeves had requested direct communication with Kethvar. The conversation that followed changed everything. Through their enhanced connection, Sarah had helped translate between the Admiral's human concerns and Kethvar's ancient wisdom. For the first time, a high-ranking Alliance official had actually listened to what the Leviathan had to say. The war damaged us all, Kethvar had told the Admiral through Sarah's translation. But damage can be healed if we choose healing over revenge. Reeves had been skeptical at first, but when Kethvar offered to share memories of lost Alliance worlds and fallen soldiers, the Admiral's resistance crumbled. Like so many others, he found himself weeping as he experienced the final moments of his own brother, killed defending a refugee convoy during the war. Your brother's sacrifice allowed 40,000 civilians to escape, Kethvar had shown him. His courage echoes still in the songs my people sing. The Alliance fleet had withdrawn that day, but not in defeat. Admiral Reeves had returned to Alliance command with a very different report than anyone expected. Within months, the official policy toward Leviathans had changed. The creatures were reclassified from dangerous war relics to living repositories of galactic heritage. The sanctions were established as protected sites, and Kethvar was granted official status as a cultural ambassador. Sarah, Marcus called from the communication center, we're receiving a priority message from the Centauri Sanctuary. Sarah made her way to the comm station, where Colonel Morrison was waiting with an excited expression. What's the news, Anne? Sarah asked, using the informal name she'd grown comfortable with over the past year. The first hybrid Leviathan just made its first successful hyperspace jump, Morrison announced. A young one named Harmony, carrying memories from human, Altarian, and Vegan donors. Sarah felt Kethvar's joy through their connection. The ancient creature was currently in the deep waters of the sanctuary, helping guide the development of its children. Each success filled it with hope for the future. There's more, Morrison continued. The Alliance Council has officially requested that Kethvar address the Galactic Assembly next month. Sarah's eyebrows rose in surprise. They want a Leviathan to speak before the Assembly? Not just any Leviathan. They specifically requested the bridge singer who helped heal the wounds between species. That was the title the various species had given to Kethvar after learning of its role in preserving their histories. Bridge singer, memory keeper, last song of the deep. All names that spoke to the creature's unique position in galactic society. What does Kethvar think about addressing the Assembly? Sarah asked. She already knew the answer, but she asked anyway. Through their permanent connection, she felt the ancient creature's mix of nervousness and determination. It wants to share the deep memories with all the species represented. she said aloud. Show them what was lost in the war, but also what can be rebuilt. The message from the Centauri sanctuary continued with more good news. The other sanctuaries were thriving as well, each developing its own unique character based on the local environment and the species that had chosen to participate. The Vegan sanctuary specialized in developing new forms of artistic expression, combining Leviathan songs with the visual arts of other species. The Altarian sanctuary focused on scientific research, using the archived memories to recreate lost technologies in new ways. But perhaps most importantly, the sanctuaries had become places of pilgrimage for people seeking connection with lost loved ones. The memory carriers, those who had voluntarily accepted portions of Kethvar's archive, had established networks across the galaxy. Anyone could visit a sanctuary and experience memories of extinct homeworlds, lost family members, or vanished civilizations. The healing is spreading, Sarah realized, watching the young Leviathans play in the water below. It's not just about preserving the past anymore. It's about building a better future. Dr. Hayes nodded agreement. The psychological studies are remarkable. People who experience the shared memories show decreased aggression, increased empathy, and stronger connections to other species. We're literally watching the galaxy become more compassionate. A soft chime indicated an incoming personal message. Sarah opened it to find a video from her old salvage crew, showing them at work on a new project. Sarah, her former first mate, waved at the camera. Thought you'd want to see this. We're not salvaging wrecks anymore. We're hunting for lost colonies mentioned in the Leviathan archives. Found 3 habitable worlds just this month. The message continued with images of recovered ruins, ancient artworks, and sleeping automated systems that still functioned after centuries of abandonment. The archives weren't just preserving memories. They were leading to the actual recovery of lost civilizations. There's something else, Marcus said quietly, bringing Sarah another communication. This one's from Earth Central. Sarah opened the message and found herself looking at President Williams, the highest elected official in human space. Captain Chen, the president began, I want to personally thank you for your service to not just humanity, but to all galactic species. Your actions have opened doors we didn't even know existed. The message went on to offer Sarah any position she wanted in the Alliance government. From Admiral to Ambassador to Director of Xenological Studies, what will you tell them? Morrison asked after the message ended. Sarah looked out at the sanctuary they'd built, at the young Leviathans learning to swim and sing, at the memory carriers helping visitors connect with lost loved ones. Through her bond with Kethvar, she felt the ancient creature's contentment as it watched its children grow. I think I'll stay right here, she said with a smile. This is where I belong. That evening, as the sanctuary's twin suns set over the crystal waters, Sarah walked along the shore with Kethvar gliding beside her in the shallows. The creature's massive form cast dancing shadows on the beach, while its gentle songs harmonized with the laughter of children playing in the waves. Do you ever regret leaving the battle zone? Sarah asked through their mental connection. Kethvar's response came with images of war and destruction, contrasted with the peaceful scene around them. I spent 50 years surrounded by the debris of death, small singer. Now I am surrounded by the promise of life. How could I regret such a transformation? Sarah smiled, understanding completely. She had given up her old life as a salvage operator to become something she'd never expected. A guardian of hope, a protector of memories, and a bridge between species. As the stars emerged in the darkening sky, more Alliance ships appeared in orbit. Not warships this time, but passenger vessels filled with pilgrims. Scientists, artists, and dreamers all coming to experience the miracle of the Leviathan sanctuaries. The wounded war beast that everyone had abandoned was alone no more. And neither, Sarah realized, was she. In saving Kethvar, she had found her true purpose. In sharing its memories, the galaxy had found its way back to hope. And in the laughter of hybrid children playing in crystal waters under alien stars, the future itself had found its voice. The last song of the deep swimmers had become the first song of a new age. And Sarah Chen, the brave blonde woman who had refused to abandon a wounded creature, had become the conductor of a galactic symphony of healing and hope. Sometimes, Sarah reflected as she watched the stars, the most important salvage operations weren't about recovering lost things. They were about discovering what had never truly been lost at all.